10-footer is in. Big-time bucket from Dane Goodwin. Pump fakes, now he's going to drive down the lane, up to the rim, and lays it home. Great move by Leszewski. Feet ahead movement, catches, banks it in, and one. Over to Starling, 12 to shoot. Oh, he gets the corner. Dribbles towards the middle, crossover, step back, 25-footer is pure! Oh, Trey Wirtz! Now he picks up the dribble, over to Goodwin, back to Ryan. Oh, he wants another one. Give it to him! All day, baby! All night! Cormac Ryan is unconscious! He's got flames coming out of his hands!
Welcome to this week's edition of the Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com. I'm your host, Tony Simeone, joined as always by the head coach, Mike Brey. Coach, we're coming off a 1-1 week. You had the win against BU, took a tough one against Marquette, now 7-3 on the year. Just how would you assess the week?
Well, disappointing end of the week. We bounced back and figured out how to beat Boston University in a very good game where we lost the lead in the second half. And Marquette kind of Big Easted us. You know, we really had a hard time getting into scoring areas against their pressure defense, and we had a hard time guarding their athletic ability. And, you know, it's an area where we have to address and try and get better at because we're going to see more of that.
What I was going to ask you is, sometimes I know you prefer to maybe learn and teach after a win, but sometimes a loss can give you some good teaching points you can put forth and get the team going in a certain direction. What did you learn in the game against Marquette that you guys will focus on?
Well, I mean, we have to score. We're going to have to be better offensively. As much as they got into our paint and scored, you know, they didn't get it to 90. You know, we were keeping that thing a little low for them. And we just couldn't get to areas on the floor. Now, I do think a Marcus Hammond coming back and getting healthier, and I think he showed that he's getting there, even in the loss against Marquette. Being another guard that can get to the paint and break the defense down is needed for us, and it's something we've got to address as we get ready for Georgia.
Coach, appreciate it. We'll step aside, and when we come back, we'll break down both games from this week's edition of Inside Notre Dame Men's Basketball, presented by TireRack.com. We'll be back with more on the Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com, right after this. Welcome back to the Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's game breakdown. Let's start with BU, Coach. You were coming off a loss against Syracuse. I think the best number about you guys, and we talked about it before the game, is coming off of losses. You've yet to drop back-to-back games in over a year. It was back BC and Illinois, that tough stretch early last year. You guys have been so good when you get in what you call bounce back mode. So what was the discussion amongst the team as you got ready to bounce back from Syracuse?
Well, we're certainly in it again after that butt kicking by Marquette, but there's no question that this group has responded after a loss and have kind of circled the wagons and rallied. And we were playing a veteran, old BU team that had won together, so we knew we had a challenge.
Cormac Ryan's a guy that we've talked about a bunch for good reason. He was coming off the great performance against Michigan State. Even in the loss against Syracuse, shot it well. He started you off really strong in this BU game. What kind of dynamic does Cormac bring to the offense when he's shooting it the way he is?
Yeah, I think what he's really learned to do is be a catch-and-shoot guy and not worry about dribbling so much. And again, then we've got to get our guards into the paint to find him, which is a work in progress, as you and I have talked about earlier. But when he is a catch-and-quick release guy or a catch one dribble and up guy, he is amazingly efficient. He has got a beautiful stroke. He would be the guy I would bring to coaches' clinics to show shooting form and quick release. It's that pure.
The other guy that got off to a good start for and helped offensively was Trey Wirtz, and we talked about him in last week's show, how he really had a nice first 3 games, scoring the ball more like probably his days at Santa Clara. Then he went on a 5-game stretch where he didn't score it in double figures. In this game, he was 6 of 12, back into double figures. He was moving the ball well, 4 assists. When Trey is both scoring and distributing, what does that do for your offense?
That really helps us, and as I said, with Marcus Hammond down the first couple games, he's really been a lifesaver for us, and actually probably we've had to ask him to do a little too much, and I think the minutes are a little high for him. Hammond coming back and shaving some of that off and some ball handling responsibility is only going to help him. But Trey knows how to play. He knows our system. He's a great shooter. He's a clutch shooter, too. You know, he makes big ones. He's gotten better defensively and more physical. But you're talking about a guy who really knows how to play, and I think he just needs a little bit more of a blow each half.
One guy who does do a really good job of driving and get fouled is J.J. Starling. A little bit later in the half, he gave you 6 in a row. I thought the nice note about him is he was 6 of 6 from the free throw line, an area where maybe his numbers were lower to start the year. He was back in double figures with 15. J.J. seems to be a guy that just every game he's getting a little bit more comfortable. And like Blake last year, it seems like he's going to have to keep going to the rim to help you guys offensively.
No question, Tony. And I thought his week of practice was different, more focused, more mature, older, and he and I talked about that. I thought he handled practice for both games. His concentration was better. And it, you know, it's a young player learning. He's very smart. So all you need to do is coach him. But you're right, him getting to the lane, getting to the rim, 2-foot stops, getting fouled is a key for us.
You get out of there with the win. 6-point victory over BU. As you mentioned, you led by a lot, then they trim it. But at the end of the day, you get the victory and you're 7-2. Just what was the talking point in the locker room?
Yeah, you know, I just said, you know, I mean, maybe we played around with the game a little bit. You know, Coach Solomon got on him at one timeout. But you know, I give credit to other teams too. I mean, you know, they have good players and they're old and you're not just going to shut them out. And that we responded and figured out a way to get out of our building with a win was important. And this group has done that more often than not.
We'll be back with more on the Mike Brey Show right after this. It's time now to look inside the Marquette game. Coach, no, you didn't get the result here, and we'll get to Marquette in a second, but let's talk about John Shumate first. He went into the Ring of Honor, 10th member to go into the Ring of Honor. When I talked to you throughout the week, when I heard you speak about it, you seem to take a lot of pride in the fact that he was going in, as you said, under your watch. Just explain to me what he's meant to the program and why it meant so much to have him go up there.
One of the great combinations of a fearless, tough, cruel, and I don't mean that in a negative way, in a positive way, competitor between the lines, but outside the lines, a teddy bear, an ambassador for the university and our basketball program. And Tony, as I've said many times, not only was John a great player for us, he was on Coach Phelps's coaching staff and mentored many young people like LaFonso Ellis. So I was thrilled that we could get him up, well-deserved. You could argue that maybe it's a little late. We have a lot of guys to take care of up there in the rafters. But it's neat that when I'm the coach, I was able to make the call to John last May and say, John, you're up, come on up. And guys get very emotional. And it means so much to them. And I feel like that's a lot of responsibility for me to let them know we're coming back. Coach Phelps was here and some of his teammates to celebrate with him.
Let's shift our focus now to Marquette. You knew they were coming in as a good team. I looked at them coming in and I saw they only had 3 losses before this game against 3 top 25 teams by a combined 11 points. So you knew you were getting a tough test. When you prepared for them, what were the concerns with Marquette coming to town?
Well, I watched them a little bit against Baylor a couple weeks ago when they jumped on a really good Baylor team and actually out-athleted an athletic Baylor team. And I had my worries. You know, this is an area when people push up on us and we're not able to get the ball closer to the basket to start our offense. It's a problem for us, and it kind of rang true, especially in the second half. We hung in the first half, and then we had a hard time guarding their speed. They're gifted. They have the ability to shoot it if you try and pack the lane in. If you're trying to guard them one-on-one and not help, it's hard to guard them around the bucket.
Marcus Hammond did start getting going a little bit there in the second half. We talked about him at the top of the show, how he's a dynamic that you're hoping will kind of help, especially in the backcourt, getting that extra body. It's the third game back. He looks a little bit more comfortable. When he gets to 100%, what can he do for this team?
You know, I think what we saw and we're starting to see is getting into the lane, making plays. He can score. He can shoot the ball. But you know, we've got J.J. Starling that can get to the lane. Trey, at times, he picks his spots, but he's not just blowing by you. And that's really all we had until Marcus needs to get in there and make plays for us and get fouled and be ready to shoot it. So I feel as we move into practice after exams, Georgia, Florida State, we get him in better shape, more reps. I think the knee brace comes off Friday, later this week, hopefully. And that'll be a mental thing. I think he'll feel freer then. But him getting into the paint and making plays is important for us.
This was obviously a disappointing loss just because this was a game everyone was looking forward to, the local rivalry, and you guys have been so good at home. 21-2 in your last 23 before this game. So I'm always curious just in a locker room after this, and then you have the added salt in the wound of finals coming up. I can't imagine losing this game and having to take a test the next day. Just as the head coach, just what's the message? Because it can't be all doom and gloom. It has to be bounce back. But what are you talking about?
Well, I actually started to talk about it in the last media timeout because, it was over. And we had a media timeout, and I said, look, tip their cap. Their coach kicked my butt. Their players kicked your butt. Our butts are kicked. They put it on us, and let's give them credit. And we'll got to work. We got to figure out how to help you. And so in the locker room, that's a little bit of that tone, and then it's really into exam stuff. And because I need everybody eligible for Georgia, and so. We won't give them any feedback by way of maybe email because the staff and I will be on the road recruiting through midweek. We won't give them anything till Tuesday night. And then Thursday we get back into practice mode, Friday, Saturday, and we got to bounce back a little bit and not dwell on it. And can we go win on the road against Georgia?
Coach, appreciate it. We'll step aside, and when we come back, we'll have more on the Mike Brey Show right after this. It's now time for this week's edition of Irish Intel. Coach, always one of my favorite times. This is against Boston University. I thought last year on baseline inbound sets, you guys were unstoppable. You get a great look here against BU early in the game.
We're not as good as last year yet, but we're a work in progress. But we get this to Cormac, and he is in that rhythm of catch and shoot. But it's just really good execution where we give him a stagger, a screen on one side, and a single screen on the other. And he really comes off and uses it, and he's got a little window to come up and fire. Trey delivers the ball. Our goal is to be as efficient on out-of-bounds under this year as we were last year.
This is going to be a lazy comparison for me, but I'm going to go way back. This is, to me, where I see is single-double. You can send Cormac either way. I think of J.J. Redick against Duke. You put one guy on one side, send him a double one way. He can go either way, right? And he picks his spot and finds the open three.
Either way, and we run this single-double. We run it as a set for Dane a lot of times offensively. So it's kind of a choice here, and he leaves a little early. We wanted him to wait for Marcus to get down there. He leaves a little early. He's a little anxious, and he even gives his guy a shove a little bit, which is a veteran. He gets him in the chest a little. But watch this catch and fire. This is coach's clinic stuff. Catch, square feet, boom, form, doesn't even hit any metal.
So, Coach, first time this year we're going to focus on some defense. Thought this was a great play late. Ven's going to get the block, but tell me what you guys do defensively here. It looks like you're switching everything out on the perimeter.
We call this green. No three-point shots. Switch everything. We're up high. So it ends up putting Ven out on a guard. He does a great job of being long and blocking a jump shot without fouling. That is just fabulous defense by a big guy on a guard. And he's only in his 10th or 9th game in college. But we switched it all because right there, up 5, we just can't give up a 3. Trey switches. Yep, we switch again here. Trey switches again. Right, we're hugging. Switch again. And just beautiful by Ven and really calm. And that 3 goes in, it becomes a different night right there. So green, switch it all, no 3s.
Welcome back to the Notre Dame Men's Basketball Show. Earlier this week, Notre Dame forward John Shumate was the 10th member inducted into the Irish Men's Basketball Ring of Honor. Early in the week, he was at a press conference where the media was available to ask him some questions, and we're going to take a listen to it right now.
You've had a chance to go back and watch that 74 game. What was it like to watch it? Not as a player, but as a viewer.
Oh, I smiled. It brings a smile because it takes you back into the past to be involved with one of the great memories that you have, and so when I can see it on tape, I'm still very proud of it. and of our guys, of our team, the fact that we could go out and pull off something that was so vital and important for, I think, college basketball. Because the Bruins, they were beating everybody. Nobody could compete with them. And they were great. And so on that day, we were the best team.
I wondered if I could ask you about the medical situation that you had while you were in school here, and just the recovery process and what that time was like for you, and what the Notre Dame family was like for you during that time.
That was it was tough. It was tough because I worked so hard to be a good citizen, to always be a hard worker. Basketball, I loved basketball, and now all of a sudden the doctor says that you may never play basketball again. One night when I was laying in the bed feeling sorry for myself, and I got a phone call, and it was my dad. And my dad is gone, but when he said, "Let's pray," and we prayed, and I went out and had a heck of a basketball game. There was no fear. There was absolutely no fear. I had no doubt that we were going to win the basketball game, and that's the honest goodness truth. And obviously, it wasn't just me. My teammate Gary Brokaw, Dwight Clay, Ray Martin, and a host of other guys. We all, and I have to say to Coach Phelps, he did a wonderful job of preparing us. Obviously, he wants you to think he prepared us and he played the game himself. As coach. So again, thank God, it was an awesome game. It has followed me the rest of my life, and I would say it couldn't have happened to a better person.
It's time to wrap up this week's episode. Coach, we talked about it a little bit in the last segment. Finals week. This is part of playing not just at Notre Dame, but any collegiate basketball program. But at Notre Dame, it's tough academically. What's the focus when the guys get into finals week as a student?
And we got 6 guys in grad school. I got 6 guys in graduate work this week. It's the real deal, Tony. And I always worry about guys, getting enough sleep, which they won't. But, I tell them, I know you may not sleep right, but make sure you're eating. Try and get in here and do some cardio, because we're not going to practice again until Thursday night at 7. And you just want guys to finish strong. And, we've always said, hey, let's have a team GPA of 3.0. Mm-hmm. That's been a goal we've tried to shoot for. I think we were 2.9 in the summer. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have a great shot at that. And I've been very proud of how they've handled their academic business. Pat Holmes, my academic advisor, he's not really called me this semester to say, oh, we got a problem, we got this. He's not going to class. He's not coming to study hall. Our graduates handle their business. Our young guys have been very businesslike about their academics.
Let's look forward now to a week from now. So you have the break for finals. Then it's a really interesting road trip. First true road test going down to Tallahassee. But before that, you have a stop in Atlanta. What are you looking forward to with this trip to the South?
Well, I think it'll be exciting. They're going to play in an NBA arena, and I told them yesterday, because I'm trying to turn the page a little bit and get them going after the game, like we're going to practice in State Farm Arena, the home of the Hawks, on Saturday night and get a feel for it. And it'll be a road game because it's Georgia in Atlanta. But that's a good thing. That's a good thing for us. They're an SEC team. It's an opportunity for a quality win against a Power 5 team. We have one already in Michigan State. We missed the opportunity against Marquette. Here's the last one on the non-league slate that you can beat a Power 5 team.
Coach, looking forward to that a week from now. That does it for this week's edition of the Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com.